Hello, everyone, and welcome to the World Class Coaching Podcast with your hosts, Matt Carroll and Sean Fedema, brought to you by World Class Coaching and Pennant Education. We will be working in this podcast to unearth hidden gems of advice from coaches at all levels that help you improve your program, club, or team. Today, though, we want to get together and introduce ourselves and the premise of the program, which will include interviews, tactical breakdowns, and we'll have accompanying articles and videos about the drills that we talk about in the sessions. To start off, my name is Matt Carroll, and in my early years of coaching, I was an avid listener of the Coaching Soccer Weekly podcast with Tom Mira. So when I was given the opportunity to create my own podcast for World Class Coaching, I jumped at it. I've been coaching now for 14 years at the high school level predominantly. In the past couple years of club, I've kind of also coached in other sports as well, with lacrosse, baseball, worked in our school's weight room, and I've been a high school teacher for the last 14 years as well. I have my USSF D license, as well as a number of certifications through United Soccer Federation. And with me is my former assistant coach and current assistant at Freehold Borough High School, Coach Sean Fedema.
Hey everybody, how we doing? So thank you guys for tuning in. Really looking forward to starting the show off with Matt. We want to give a special shout out to World Class Coaching and Pennant Sports for bringing us in. To give us this great opportunity to share what we have with you guys. So a little bit about myself. So as Matt said, he found me. I guess I like how Matt said it's looking for the hidden gems, and he found me as a hidden gem. So we started coaching in New Egypt together. He had me lead the middle school program with the whole idea of kind of having me lock down the future and get the kids ready to be sent up to him at the high school. And then fate behold that, he needed me up at the high school. So we coached a couple years together, had a couple successful runs in New Egypt. Then I went over, was the assistant varsity coach at West Windsor Plainsboro South for 3 years. And now I'm the freshman coach and also assistant varsity over at Freehold Borough. So mainly my experience with coaching the game all comes at the high school level. I did coach for a club for about one season in a 7v7 winter league. But majority of my time has been spent at the high school ranks. I've been a teacher for 11 years, and I've also had, numerous experience coaching. I've been coaching lacrosse at different levels throughout my career. I'm a state championship winning bowling coach. Just a little bit of a tidbit about
People don't
me.
talk about that enough.
No, they don't. No, they do not. And I also coached a little bit of basketball, did winter track for one season. So I'm just, love coaching, love being around the kids and everything. So.
Yeah, and I think that brings in a unique perspective as both of us having been at every level, middle school to a head coach of different sports and just seeing different things and kind of being forced into that, the working in a tiny school that we did. We kind of did a lot of different things and wore different hats and we're class advisors and different sports coaches and helping a buddy out and being his freshman coach. In addition to being soccer as our really our main passion, getting different perspectives on how to coach and how other sports, teach certain things and utilize those tools. So to get started, what we kind of want to do is have topics that we're reaching with, based on the part of the season we're at or anything like that, or if there's something especially poignant that's going on in the soccer world, and talk to our guests. So to get started, I want to discuss kind of what we were actually talking about before we got on the call, which is preseason. Here in New Jersey, we start on Monday. It's gearing up. You've had your summer sessions. We actually are going to play against each other this weekend at a tournament down in Stockton.
Yeah, you're going down, bud.
We'll see about that. All right. So everyone does the start of the season like a little differently. It sets a tone for your program for the year, how you'll play. Yeah, but like more so like what will be the energy of your program? Like how are your kids going to react? Are they going to be excited? At the end of the day, whether you're coaching U10s or high school age players, they're kids and they want to be excited about it. They want to feel part of something. They're not always in it for the exact same reasons that you are. Obviously, everyone's looking to compete and win and things like that. But a lot of it is more for them, the social aspect, and you create that social dynamic, and that comes in that energy and that love for your program is going to come during this time period. So I figured we start off with that and just kind of talk about some of the ways we do things. So, John, I was going to ask you to start just, not only just what are the drills you're doing, what are the things you're doing for physical activation, heat acclimatization, all that fun stuff. periodization, but also like how are you getting the buy-in from the players? How are you getting them excited um, with what's going on? And then we've come from New Egypt where we were essentially like begging kids to come out and to fill our JV roster to now we're at programs with anywhere between 60 to 100 kids, and cuts are something you have to kind of deal with. So kind of open ended there for you, and I want to hear how you guys do off season at Freehold.
Yeah, of course. So, it's kind of funny again. You brought up Stockton because obviously that's Sunday. I think a big part of what we do for our preseason is we have Stockton as kind of like this, end all. Like this is what you're building up to in your entire preseason. Because just so it's aware for all of our listeners in New Jersey, our official preseason starts Monday. We can have summer workouts; they're voluntary. We're not really allowed to hold the kids to anything specifically up until our start date, which is this Monday. And then we'll have about a week of preseason. You got to do 6 practices before you're able to get into your scrimmages. But this is all stuff we're going to hit later on. But basically, our end all be all and our motivation for our kids is, hey, we've got, the Stockton Showcase on Sunday and you want to come, for the 4 or 5, weeks. We do 2 sessions a week. We've been doing mostly 6 a.m.s to 8 a.m.s. Sometimes we do p.m.s as well, but just with the fact that New Jersey is now literally Florida with the weather, as in it's either 95 degrees or there's a pouring thunderstorm outside. We've been moving everything to the mornings. So we've been having about 60 kids come out for our sessions, sometimes 40, 60. And, we really, really, a lot of the things that Coach Parshalunas does, he preaches, I'm sure, he's going to be a guest for us when he'll talk about some of these things when the time comes and he's on this podcast, is this idea that you're always being evaluated at all times. No matter whether you're a varsity, you're the star player on varsity or a number 9 up top, or you're the last guy coming on the bench on the freshman team, is you are always being watched by coaches. Everyone's always seeing what's going on. There's an eye on you, and there's somebody who's coming for your spot, and you're always under some type of evaluation. So what we do is we kind of use the Stockton Showcase that we have on Sunday as a motivator to get our kids out to our summer sessions. So we'll be like, hey, if you want to, kind of get ahead of the game and get a first look at what it's like to, not only play against other varsity top, of the line competition for New Jersey high schools, but you also kind of want to get in front of coaches earlier, come out over the summer, impress over the summer, make a name for yourself, then we're going to give you that opportunity at the Stockton tournament because we do it as an invite only.
Yeah,
Because
so it's
we
kind of like
obviously
with what we have in Jersey with the that like kind of summer open period. Other sports can practice as well, but you're essentially like you're kind of having to motivate them to be motivated in a way. Like you really don't have anything to say. Hey, if you don't do this, you won't play. It's really that you're not allowed to evaluate during that time period really up until the beginning of the season. In theory, so you can't hold the kids accountable in that regard. It's not just like in the regular season where you're expected to show up. A lot of it is like you got to get them to buy into it.
right. And obviously, we can't hold that to them. And there are, there's plenty of kids, like even looking at the roster that we're bringing on Sunday, there's kids that we know who will be, either, varsity starters or coming off the bench for varsity just because, like our one kid's like, hey, I was in Portugal all summer. So, we're obviously, can't hold that against other kids for traveling, everything like that. But, what it is, it's just that little bit more of an incentive, right? And again, getting that buy in of, hey, you're always being evaluated. You want to be evaluated, be here more, make a name for yourself. Okay, even if you're ultimately going to be on like a JV bench player, we're still rewarding you with that opportunity of, hey, let's see what you've got against other varsity players and at this level.
Right, kind of like whatever you put in, you're going to get out of it. So the more you're present, you're being aware, you're getting you're in front of the coach's eyes and things like that. It's not going to hurt you.
Right. Because that's the other thing we kind of always work with our kids too is, this whole idea of controlling as much as you can. We get into our high school season, there's always so many uncontrollable things that are going on, not only within the other game, within the opponent, but is your bus on time? Is your bus running late? Where are the refs? Who is the ref? What's your history with, whatever is going on, you know, is we just tell our kids there is so much out of our control that can go wrong during the season, that everything that we possibly can control, we need to take care of. And one of those things is, hey, practice starts at 6, you're here stretching at 5:45, and that's kind of crazy seeing, 40, 50 kids when it's still almost pitch black outside doing their warm-ups, going through the rondos and everything before we start. But again, it's, just those two things of, you control your effort, you control what time you be here, you control your intensity. If you control all those things with this idea of, hey, you're always, kind of under the eye and being evaluated by somebody, that really motivates our kids to have a buy-in. So then that way, when we get to tryouts, they're already hitting the ground running.
Yeah, I love it. And I think we have very similar philosophies in that regard of like, it's control the uncontrollable. It was in high school, my coach told us, his big thing that kind of stuck with me that resonated was, what did you do today to make this program better? And it's the same thing, like you're constantly being evaluated, but we also talk about honesty in our program. Like you're being evaluated by yourself. Like, can you look at yourself and say, I made this program better today. I did something that made myself better as a player that makes this program better, and I've added to the team some way. And teaching that accountability within them. And I think a lot of that's what summer is about is I can't tell you if you don't do X, Y, and Z, you can't play. But if you don't do X, Y, and Z, another person on the team is doing X, Y, and Z, or a team,
Mm-hmm.
one of our rivals is doing X, Y, and Z, and you're not getting there, and you're not controlling that very controllable thing. Um,
Right.
yeah.
And I
So.
think, something that we do a lot is, just keeping it focused on us. Is we
Mhm.
know when we started later than everybody else, we give the kids a little bit of an extra time off before the school. But, we're worried about just showing up and doing the best that we can, and something that we hold our kids, we've been saying a lot for our kids is like, you can come here over the summer. We've been doing a lot of ball work. We'll talk about some stuff we do in a minute. But we tell them, we're like, look, when this, tryouts comes on Monday, there's two things that we as coaches we're not responsible for. We're not responsible for your technical skills as far as like, improving on the ball, getting better on the ball, and we're not responsible for your fitness. Here in New Jersey, we get a week, then we get into 2, 3 scrimmages, then games. So we just just put as much of the kids in the cans. Like, yes, we're going to do things to improve you technically, right? Make you better on the ball. So, we're not saying, oh, like, we're just going to do tactics right when you come in and we're not going to make you better. But, if you want to get that extra leg, you need to be at home doing simple ball work. We send out like a master list of multiple ball work drills and programs that our kids can be doing. It's like, look, if you just show up and you're doing the ball work and the fitness that we're giving you, there's still a whole nother component that somebody else on the team might be doing to get ahead of you. So make
And
sure
I
you're
like that. I'm sorry.
no, you're good. So, just you're responsible for your fitness, you're responsible for your ball work, to maximize that as much as you can when you're outside of, what we're doing.
Yeah, and I like that idea of like eliminating excuses. Like, no, you don't know. I don't know what to do. Well, I didn't have time. Like, yo, here's the ball work. Here's how long it'll take you. You can fit that in. You can do 25 minutes. And that's something I feel it's that balance of there's you got your tournaments, you got your summer leagues, there's dates, things like that. But at some point, I always kind of think like it is summer. You want these kids to enjoy that aspect of it. It's a long, grueling high school season. You're going for you're starting in mid-August, plus all the stuff you do in the summer, and then you can go into, mid-late November, and you're practicing 6 days a week, and you're building in rest days and things like that. But it's a grueling process, and you don't want them fizzling out in September. So one of the things we like to do is we try to like gamify it, and I know we tried some of this at New Egypt, but we've amped it up recently where we put the players into 4 different teams, and they're led by seniors. And those seniors are basically team captains of those teams, and they hold them accountable, and they get all their stuff in, and you teach them how to like report and when to report, and just check in with them regularly. But we vary it, so it's we give them 5 different sprint workouts you can do, and that counts as a point. You give them technical workouts, like you guys said. We do, you count your miles ran, but you also can do an individual workout. We have a form for filling out for if you watch a game. And then the one that they actually requested and added was, hey, we're going to be spending a lot of time together. We should, be bonding a little bit. So you get 2 points instead of 1 point for attending a team event, which is like a breakfast or going watching a movie or something like that. I think just that part of it is like giving them the tools and then kind of like setting that in motion is kind of what you have in the summer. Is you're just kind of hoping that they fall through, hoping you've instilled enough of the will and the fight in your program that they want to do these kind of things, but giving them those tools. And then, some of these guys, they're busy, they have things going on that are out of their control, and you don't see them till, August. You're like, I hope you were listening. So.
Now, Matt, do you guys have any fitness tests that you guys hit? Like, so we're going to come in the tryouts on Monday. What do you like? What are your benchmarks that you're looking for your kids when tryouts start?
Yeah, so I know this is like a point of contention for a lot of like high school coaches, and talking with our friend Paul Carazzolo at Norfolk Academy, kind of going back and forth, and like there is a mental aspect to that kind of stuff, a toughness thing, a benchmark. Like, hey, if you can't set your benchmark to hit this point, so do you want to be here? And especially with in a school where you have so many talented players, it's an easy way of kind of differentiating players. And again, it's just creating that work ethic and that goal-driven mindset. But I think we've gone away from a lot of this stuff, and we try to incorporate it into uh, the game. So we do like a beep test. We do an Illinois agility test. We do a fun run where they work as a team. They're tied together with a string, and if you break the string and it's a slower thing, it takes a while. It's not too taxing,
Classic.
but it's yeah. Did a classic we had at New Egypt, um, and it's just like stuff that's incorporated. It's challenging that way. And we don't hold it like if you can't do this, you don't make the team. And I think a lot of people do that, and I think it works for them. But it's more so if you can't do this, your team's not getting those points, and kind of making
Mhm.
it more work together and building into that game system that we have. And we continue it. We do it with fundraising. And there's a pizza part at the end. It's fun. It's not like super competitive that they're like fighting over it or cheating or anything like that. But like it's enough that it's like, hey, I really need an excuse to get out there? But no, but this gives me that kind of little edge to make it fun. I'm gonna go make a run and I'll type it in the computer and I'll get some points.
Right. No, I like that a lot. It seems like, just watching your program grow over the past few years, it's obviously doing something right with the, steps forward that you guys have taken over these last 3 years. Going, getting, a strong winning season, making the semifinals is, you guys have taken a lot of steps. So it obviously seems like, you guys are reaping the benefits of doing that. And that's honestly, something that we're also trying to model over at Burrow is getting our kids ready to take that next step. We had a couple down seasons. Last season looked like all was lost. We were sitting on the outside of states. We're not gonna make it, and we were wondering, what are we gonna do? And our kids just hit this point where they were like, Coach, we're gonna prove that we belong, and we had to win our last 3 games to get the 16 seed. So Matt and I, you were both in the same section for states. Basically, how New Jersey does it is you're grouped by the area of the state. Your north, central, south, and then groups 1 through 4 is one smaller school, 4 is the biggest school. So we're both in Central Jersey, Group 3, which is a very, very competitive, like one of those anyone can win type sections for states. And we were just battling for the 16 seed, and we ended up winning our last 3 games. Our last game against Brick Township was the 16 versus 17 seeds. So basically, the winner got the 16 seed and made states. We won on a last second goal with like 2 minutes to go off of a corner, and then nearly gave it right back on a backwards throw in to the other team's opposition striker with 30 seconds to go. But we're not going to worry about that. But so what we're trying to get at with our kids is, guys, you showed such incredible fight and character at the end of the season. Can we put that together, from September 4th, not November 2nd? So, trying to
Mm.
kind of model and do things like you were doing is, getting our kids to just go beyond the soccer, your character, your resolve, your belief in yourself and one another. So, it sounds like a lot of that stuff that you're doing in the preseasons, really, really paying off a lot of positives. So, we're trying to do some more, systems like that to, just get our kids to go. Just, we tell our kids, look, you're on varsity. We know you can kick a soccer ball. It's what intangibles are you going to bring to the table to go to the next step and just go beyond, where we've been.
Yeah, and I think that brings up two different concepts you got there, which is like you're trying to use preseason, and it's not the end all be all. It's not like a set it and forget it, and then you're done with the year, and it's like, well, we'll see how these guys play over the next couple months. But it is setting that tone, and like, how do you take those those things that you have that worked really well last year, and how do you continue those with a new crop of players coming up, and then some players have left and maturing and things like that? How do you make that consistent? I think that's the big thing that either separates you from your previous season if you didn't like it, or it rolls those things in. It's kind of how you make it um, a program. And then I think the other part is the balance, of um, how much of it is the technical, the tactical aspect of it, the soccer part of it. How much of it is that making, getting your team together, making sure that they gel, pushing them in the right direction, not overdoing it so you can have that spurt in the late season, but you're not, kind of floundering in the beginning of the season. I think that's the kind of the dance you have as a coach in the preseason. And I think one of the things we've tried to do is kind of balance that. And we've set up, basically we can have up to 3 hour practices. We really don't. Generally, sessions are going to be an hour and a half. But that first week, we kind of jam a lot in. And to make it so we do those things that we do, like even the beep test is like a fun thing that separates from soccer. They're excited about it. They're not excited so much to do it, but they're excited to challenge each other and play. And then we have days like I think our Wednesday day will be our media day. We're looking to do a photo shoot and just kind of balancing that, like, hey, we need to grind. The season's coming, whether we like it or not, in a week and a half. We gotta be ready to go, scrimmage down in the shore. We gotta drive down, to South Jersey and go play somebody like in just a week. And how much of it is like, hey, we get to be together. This is really exciting. And I think finding that balance is definitely something. Every year is different, but it is a struggle for sure. One of the bigger
So, Matt, what
challenges.
would you say your balance is, kind of going off of that, like with where you're approaching the season, because as you said, we have a week and, I don't know what your preseason season looks like. For us at Borough, we have a week and then we go into 4 scrimmages and
Yep.
then we'll have a couple days and then we're going to get ready for you, West Windsor, and then we get into the Shore, which is, for our listeners outside New Jersey, Shore Conference is just an absolute gauntlet at all levels.
Mhm.
What is your balance of, technical work, tactical work, fitness work, and where are you trying to maximize the most as you're getting ready and just knowing, hey, I've got a week, then I have scrimmages and we're in the thick of it already.
I'd say it's like maybe like 70-30. Like we have a lot of work to do, and it's a lot of the coaching, and everyone there is there to play soccer. We are, and we try to keep it drills that the players know so that the older players have the opportunity to teach those drills. And for JV players that might not get as exotic, or freshman players that might not get exotic in their sessions, they have a few really key drills that they can hammer in. So for those new guys, it's sometimes like a learning thing where they're kind of overwhelmed with all of it. So to push them would be too much. And for the guys that know, it's like a cementing thing, and they kind of get this role, hey, I'm practicing, I'm doing these drills, I know, but they're teaching it as well. So they kind of have this sense of like, hey, like, follow me, kid, I'm gonna show you how to do it, and they get that kind of award for it. So I think although we're pushing a lot of drill stuff like that, we're trying to make it, we're trying to put in that thought process of how are we making this different and new while still doing a lot of things that are the same, and trying to make it, you know, um, you know, a program, not just individual teams that come through every single year. But then, I'd say that 30%, it's not just big things. It's not, we're going to do a team breakfast. We're going to have the photo shoot. We have to break off and do snap raise for our fundraising stuff, and we'll have some fun with that. But it's just the in betweens. It's about pushing them um, to a point and getting them ready. But you don't also want to like, almost like go too hard in the beginning and kind of lose them. And some people are much more like that. Like they're a little more um, you know, they're more in charge. They're kind of more the higher level in the program, and I like to kind of get more where we're having fun within the sessions. It's not
Mm-hmm.
all business. We're getting down. We're doing stuff we need to do, but there's kind of like a professionalism, a professional, level of banter and things like that, and just keep each other fresh, and that level of competitiveness still in there while enjoying it. If you're just running them into the ground and fighting and pitting them too hard, um, you know, you can have kids that are going to develop animosity. You want them at the end of the day to be fighting together. But then
Right.
again, if you don't go hard enough, you got players that just aren't ready. For the competition that they're going to see. That they're not going to be able to do the things that you need them to do in the next few months.
So, uh, what's a drill you're going to knock out during this week? Like, I know that a big part we're going to do with this is drill shares. We kind of hit that segment here. So, what's a drill that you'd like to share? That's something you're definitely going to be breaking out as a staple during tryouts this week.
Oh, I think you know a couple of them, but we'll get to all of
Oh,
them.
I definitely know a couple of them. I may or may not have stolen a couple of them.
The
So,
great state of Michigan.
mm,
We'll get into that one. Um,
mm.
so I don't know how much we were doing this when we were together, but we have a drill we call Cinco. Very simple drill. Definitely wrote about it in several different sessions that I've done on the website. Call it Cinco because it's a 5v5 is a 5v3. I mean, we were trying to figure out a name, and one kid was just like, "There's a lot of fives. Let's call it Cinco. We just want to
I
practice." I'm
like
like,
that. That's good.
I'm
Yeah,
like, cool, man.
I still call it 5v5v 5v3 too, and the kids are like, "What?"
Yeah, Cinco. Yeah, they're like, and they all know. They all know. And essentially, what you do is you just set up two grids. We generally do about, just to try to fit as many as we can. We do like a 40 by 30, and then you cut off the grid in the middle. I usually do a coaching stick or a couple coaching sticks to kind of increase the difficulty. But essentially, you have two teams of five in each grid. One team starts with the ball, and then the team that's playing defense sends three players over to that other grid. So it's a 5v3. So what we're working on offensively, and this is what I love about the drill, is it's flexible. I can use this as a transition drill. I can use it as a defending drill. I use it. It's utilized in our possession style stuff. It's used in our pressing. To talk about defenders, we use it in our basics of defending drill. It has a lot of flexibility, and it's just really how you kind of attack it and what things you keep focus on. So you got that 5v5. They're trying to possess the ball. The three players are trying to win it. If the three players are able to take the ball, take possession of the ball, they then are going to try to get the ball across the middle of that grid to their grid. The two players waiting, and then transfer over. So now they have five guys, and then three for the players that were just dispossessed. Then go over into that 5v3. And it's a lot of transition moments. It's a lot of possession style where you're utilizing the space available. We talk about you have pressure cover balance. A lot of variabilities we'll throw in there is like we'll have point values for number of passes completed. We'll have it so if they get a certain amount of passes, you're able to send over a fourth defender. But I think it's just one of those drills that even if sometimes you have coaches that are just looking for something simple. I just need I don't need this overcomplicated drill. I just need to be able to explain what I want to explain. How can I do that? I think for at the freshman level, the JV level, at the varsity level, depending how you want to teach it, it's applicable. We use it all the time. It's easy, and I feel like I can fit it into almost any session. And I just it's a simple drill. It's nothing crazy. Pep Guardiola is not going to be wowed by it, but I think it's just something we consistently do. They have fun with it, and we just change it up enough that they really enjoy it. So what about you, Fed? What we got?
A classic. So I got the naming for this drill. So a couple of years back when Matt and I were in New Egypt together, we both attended the United Soccer Coaches Convention in Philadelphia, and I got to witness this awesome drill. I didn't know the name of it. I called it the Constantine drill because it was named after the guy, Coach Constantine, who was giving the presentation at this time. I think he was the head coach of the Indian national team. And he brought out like a squad of 17, 18-year-old MLS Next kids, and they got absolutely worked by this drill. And I'm like, oh, I love it. Because, a big part of Matt and I's philosophy is introducing, the chaos of the game in practice as much as possible. Soccer is such a rare sport where you can take a picture and you can draw up your tactics and try to do patterns and everything like that, but you receive the ball, all other 21 people on the field have now all changed their positions, right? So a lot of what we try to do is how much of the chaos of the game can we build in as possible. So Constantine drill is simple, and I think kind of with my philosophy, when I started, it was just goals, 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 goals. I've now learned the importance of keeping goals out of the back of your own net. I think it's when you look at a lot of the main staple teams and programs in New Jersey, they all keep the ball out of the back of their own nets. They're not winning games 4-2 or 5-3. They're winning games 2-0, 1-0, 1-0, 2-0. So you can take your back four, your back three, even if you want to add a six in there, kind of add a CDM in there as well. And you take your goalie and you put them all inside of the box. And then what you're going to do is you have three different crossing locations. So you've got the top left of the box, you have the top right of the box, and then you have a cutback cross coming from off of the left post, kind of aided back towards the PK spot. So what's going to happen is the drill starts by just your back four, clearing the ball. First cross is from the top left, second cross from the top right. And then what they have to do is they have to clear both those crosses, kind of reset their lines, get up, and then turn. And, where the drill gets tricky is, something that I preach a lot with my kids is, you even see it in the professional level. You're watching the Premier League on Saturday mornings. The ball that every defender wants to, hates to see is that cutback cross coming right back at them at their own PK spot when they're facing their own net. So that teaches the kids, and my players what to do when you see that ball. And, the kind of the big thing that I do and I preach to them is don't be the hero. How many times you see somebody try to make a heroic cross and they fall on their face and the other team taps it in, or they try to do something insanely athletic and it ends up as an own goal. If you get that ball out, and even sometimes, even though you don't want to, and even though sometimes you may look at another team, aka what was that, 2018 Asbury Park, when you and I were like, "Holy crap, we can knock and see the corner."
Yeah,
To this team,
that was a good squad.
that was maybe the one time we said, "Do not do it." But I teach my kids, there's nothing wrong with conceding the corner and playing it safe, because then you can reset, you can re-get your guy, and then you can just work on clearing the ball out from there instead of, "Hey, I'm going to make this heroic play." And the ball's now in the back of our net. So, just three simple crosses, then you restart it. If the ball ends up in your own net, you can do, I do like 10 push-ups, 15 push-ups. If the ball bounces in the box or they don't win it with their head or clear it with their head, it turns into some type of punishment. Then what you can do is you can do a whole variety of things, just to work on my defenders looking different ways, keeping their head on the swivels. I'll stand at the top, so as the cross is getting ready to be played, I'll have a blue, red, orange, yellow cone or penny. I'll hold it up. They'll all have to call it as the ball's in the air, so that way they're working on seeing both. Then what I'll do is just add in players. I'll add in one offensive player, two offensive players, because then what it does is you just play it live until the ball leaves the box. Because then now it's like, hey, you really got to clear it out, because now you have some type of opposition, and just keeping that stipulation of, hey, if the ball ends up in the back of the net, there's going to be some type of punishment. Just really working on the key things I emphasize with them there are, defenders, get that ball out head first, clear with your head. Goalies commanding your line. The drill just eats goalies alive because it puts them in so many difficult spots. Do I punch? Do I catch it? Do I get off my line? And just, running with them. Command your box. Command your box. If it's going over their heads, you got to get off your line. If that ball looks like it's going over your defensive players' heads and they're not going to get to it, you better be getting off of your line. So it works a whole lot of dealing with crosses, getting the ball out, and also just defensive organization and communication. So, it's a really good way to work your defense.
Yeah, I mean, I still use that one. I mean, we got a lot. We got a lot of that conference. I feel like your notebook was pretty invaluable to that season. That was the Liverpool drill. Still steal that one. That was a good one. But
Hurt Locker. We'll be
yeah,
doing a lot of those on Monday.
Yeah, and I think it's with the finite time you have available, a big thing we're doing here is just trying to find a few drills that stamp what we want on our program into the program. You talk about being tough defensively. We talk about being flexible in transition. I think those are two things that we harp a lot in our separate programs, and that's why they're the ones that come to the forefront. So one thing we're to do with the podcast is have the accompanying drill session. So if you're like me and if someone talks to you like that, you can kind of put it together in your head. I like the visual aspect of it as well. We're going to have that up for you on the website, so you can go check that out. So that is what we got for today. Thank you for joining us. We'd love to hear your ideas for interview sessions, or if you'd like to come on as a coach at any level, we'd like to hear, and we want the variability of coaches that are, say, the youth level, and they're learning how to coach, and they're first time dads, and they're, hey, like, this is what I'm doing, this is working for me. Or if you're higher level coach, high school coach, high-level club coach. I know we've talked to some of our colleagues that are at the collegiate level. We'd love to hear from you as well. So in the show notes, we'll include some how to get in contact with us. But that's all we got today. Anything from you, Fed?
No, see you on Sunday.
All
Can't
right.
wait to start next episode breaking down our tactical battle with each other on Sunday.
I don't think that's a bad idea for another episode. We might have to get into that. All right, Fed. Thanks for coming in. We'll see you guys next time. And thanks for stopping by.